Welcome. r/IDontWorkHereLady. I'm a teacher. Give me back my phone. This happened a few days ago. Sorry for the formatting. I'm on my phone. I work as a substitute teacher at various local high schools. I'm 24, but obviously look younger according to this teacher. @ equals angry teacher. Me equals self-explanatory. Why aren't you in uniform? And no phones during school. I thought he was talking to a student, so I ignored him. Excuse me, don't ignore me, he said as he snatched my phone out of my hand. Me, what the? Give that back, I'm not a student. That's detention for swearing at a teacher. You will get your phone back at the end of the day. Now you will come down to the office and tell the principal about how disrespectful you are being. By this point I thought it would be funnier to let him complain to the principal who I play netball with and watch his reaction. He was raging, saying I deserved to be suspended and that students always had their phones out, yada yada. The principal and I were just trying not to laugh before she told him I was a teacher too. Me, now give me my phone back. Don't you have a class to teach? Because I do. I have never seen anyone go so red. Edit. English is my fourth language, so 1 or 2 spelling mistakes seems pretty decent. Also thank you for the nice comments. I ran tech for a couple campuses for a school district many years ago. I had to go to another tech's high school campus to help and got yelled at by a teacher for walking the halls with one headphone in. When I explained I wasn't a student but faculty, she tried to play it off like the rules still applied. I shook my head and walked past her. Bitch, one of the reasons I took this job was to be the exception to the rules. Finally. Moved into a new town during spring semester of the local community college. Registered for summer. First week of school wandered into newspaper office to volunteer as a photographer. Young woman there introduced herself by first name. In the next few weeks we became friends in our almost daily meetings. Always seemed to be alone, since no paper published in summer. A few weeks and she and I skipped classes and took a side trip. Mind you, this was all as friends, not dating. Good thing. On that day, from a chance remark, I learned she was the journalism teacher. Is assumed she was newspaper editor. Use that in sales job interviews. I convinced a teacher to skip school. Edited to @ I also hit on teacher in 9th grade. To be fair, she was shorter than me. Been married now 20 years. Not to her though. Edited. Forgot to point out I thought she was editor. I had something similar happen to a teacher when I was in high school, in that a teacher was mistaken for a student. We were all outside standing around near the football field, which is at the front of the school. Someone had a family member or something pick up Dunkin' Donuts for them. Up pulls a car by the fence facing the road. A rather young teacher, who had been hired that year or the year before, goes up to the fence to tell the car to go away. She was afraid the Dunkin' would cause a riot. I don't blame her. On her walk over to the car and the fence, a coach who was patrolling the bleachers yells down to her, "Hey, get away from there." The teacher stops and looks up at him with a WTF face. Man, I had never seen that coach get flustered before, but he did. He shouted out a quick apology before quickly going back to bleacher patrol. We had a really young physics teacher back when I was in high school. She was 25, I think, at the time. Tiny skinny blonde girl. I feel awkward defining her as anything else, since I'm older now than her at the time. Looking nothing like the rest of the teachers at the school. One day at the beginning of her first year, me and 2 to 3 guys are walking to class and she's talking to a girl, also from my class, further down the hallway, right in front of the physics classroom. We were 10th grade at the time. So here come the 2 dipshit bullies of the school, almost 2 meters tall, beefy twins with the combined IQ of a houseplant. One of them sees the teacher and assumes she's a student and slaps her hard from behind. To this day I've never seen someone being 180% slapped so fast in my life. Best part was after all the shouting and apologizing was done to see them walking to the principal's office. 2 huge men led by a girl half their size. God bless you miss, I don't remember but that's okay, course you're brilliant either. I'll cherish that memory forever. Ah, I love a good slapping the teacher's ass by mistake story. Mine was in college. Maybe not quite as bad, but still hilarious for the onlookers. We were studying in the little break room near the classroom, waiting for the professor to arrive, when another professor came by to make a coffee. This professor was, unfortunately, shaped quite like a fellow student in this class. Poor Nicole shows up, thinks the professor is our classmate, and gooses her. We all went dead silent as the teacher turned around. I have never seen someone's face go from a grin to such abject horror so quickly. The professor was a good sport about it, but we never let Nicole forget that. When I started working at the university I graduated from, many of the faculty and staff were still working there, including the department of one of my minors. While talking with one faculty member I was friendly with from my time as a student, the one I'd been waiting for showed up, so I tried to introduce myself by saying hello, Frank, and was interrupted with I prefer to be addressed as Professor Jones. I felt bad for him when I ignored that and continued with okay, I'm Majestine and I just started in full-time I'm the new George guy I replaced. You were having problem X with your computer? He got very quiet for a minute, and I could tell he was still confused. I continued to introduce myself as the new George for about 2 years. When I took pictures for the schools I'd have to go to the inner city ones sometimes, and good lord are some of those kids screwed. The best way to describe it is that usually the teachers talked like they lived in the hood their whole life. I was really amazed, because these people somehow got a teaching license, and they can't even speak a proper sentence, which was kinda important, since a lot of those schools had Spanish-speaking kids that didn't fully grasp English. Patted my friend on the back in HS. Some teacher, who I had no idea what he even taught, or has ever said a single word to me grabbed me by my arm, and dragged me to the principal's office. Like actually dragging. I was stunned, so I just kinda went limp. Got yelled at by the teacher and another teacher joined in when she wanted in on some of that sweet disciplinary. She didn't even know why I was there, just kept going off what the other guy was saying, yelling about why would I hit someone and how disrespectful it is to my fellow students. Like I get it dude, I'm a foot taller than you, so I must be a big intimidating junior, but Jesus Christ I was about to cry over the fact that I thought I was going to get my first detention. So glad I transferred to a better high school my 3rd year. Something like this happened to me during my first year teaching. I'm a 5'0", 23-year-old that in all honesty still passes off as a 16-year-old girl. I easily blended in with the high school students I was responsible for. When our school had a field day, where grades were pitted against each other in silly gym games, think tug of war, or popping balloons from each other's ankles etc. All teachers were responsible for holding their classes back from the main field. Students were always trying to get closer to the action, even when it wasn't their turn to play. I was successfully holding my kids back, only because my students were a bunch of weirdos who liked to fawn at how small I'm and were a bit protective of me getting trampled on by the rest of the school. Lucky me, like all the rest of the teachers I was standing a bit into the field as to catch any wayward students, so I wasn't getting squished by anyone. Unlucky me, I look just like a student. In this specific case, a fellow teacher, who I absolutely hated, took it upon himself to be the last difference between the students spectating and actually playing. He basically went around grabbing kids by their arms, backpacks or sweaters, and dragging them back to their assigned place. Well, I never appreciated his method, because you never are supposed to touch a student like this. No, never. Well, guess who thought I was a student? And decided to grab my arm and lift and drag me towards the student's area. My kids were immediately wild with rage, demanding he stop touching me. Teachers were rushing to see the commotion and this stupid idiot would still not let go of me. What followed this incident was a serious talk with the teacher with the principal, a heartfelt apology, and groveling to not bring up a case of assault, and never interacting with that asshole again. This post just reminded me of my school days. I had the pleasure of alternating between public and private schools between junior high and high school. I went to inner city public schools as well as suburban ones. This seems like something that would have happened at one of my public schools. What was shocking to me was how combative teachers tended to be at public schools. Didn't matter the area, I felt like a prisoner. A lack of patience, aggressive attitudes, and escalatory tones and behaviors was a common sight. I didn't notice these issues as prevalently at the private school, despite student behavior being nearly identical. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit like. If you would like to see more, feel free to subscribe.